Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film The Brutalist, directed by Brady Corbett. So this is an epic period film about an Hungarian Jewish architect, a Holocaust survivor. He emigrates to the US after the war. He's a really accomplished architect, an artist, yet he has to start from the bottom in the US. I really enjoyed this film. It has an epic feel to it. Like Once Upon a Time in America, Dr. Zhivago, Out of Africa, one of these kind of classic epic films. I was worried about the length of the film in advance of it. 3.5 hours plus a 15-minute intermission. I felt like this going in to see Megalopolis. When I'm going in to see a long film, I prepare myself for it to be hard work. At times, Megalopolis was very hard work, but The Brutalist never was. The 3.5 hours passed very easily. Right from the beginning, I was hooked. I love it when a film does this, when it requires no effort or patience to watch. I'm not saying that I want all films to be like this, but for this one, at 3.5 hours, I was really pleased that I was instantly engaged. The opening scenes were short and they kind of represented the chaos after the war, the separation of the architect Laszlo from his wife. They were short and snappy, really chaotic, crowded and claustrophobic. And then the opening of a door to the daylight of America and the Statue of Liberty, and the perspective on that shot is so good. It's all a great opening. The film was really moving right from the start. We get this emotional meeting with his cousin when his bus arrives in Philadelphia. It's so authentic, thinking what they've been through and what a joy it would be to see each other in that situation. It's so well portrayed. There are a number of points where the film is emotional, but it's never a film that gets sentimental. I did think at one point we might be going to get a repeat of the end of The Railway Children, where the father returns on the platform. That is very emotional, but it didn't materialise like that in The Brutalist. Part of the reason why this film was instantly engaging wasn't just how well shot it was. Adrien Brody, who plays the architect Laszlo Toth, gets you on board right away. There's something about Laszlo, you're rooting for him, even though he's highly imperfect. It's an extraordinary acting performance. And it's interesting comparing it with Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. These are the two favourites for the Oscar. But for me, Brody should win the Oscar. His performance is more intense. There's more use of his body in his performance. In my review of Complete Unknown, I make the point that until he sang, I felt I was watching Chalamet rather than Bob Dylan. This was never the case with Adrien Brody. He was instantly the character Laszlo, and for me, he deserves the Oscar. Obviously, this is a film about Holocaust survivors, but it's also a film about the US and capitalism. Everything isn't as good as the American dream presents itself to be. It's interesting when Laszlo notices that his cousin sounds American, the way he talks about business, and the fact that he's changed his name so that he sounds American, denying his cultural heritage. Despite a few false starts, Laszlo meets a rich client, Van Buren, and they collaborate on this massive project. This is a personal project for Van Buren, made possible by his wealth. I thought that the first half of the film was really excellent. As the story developed, I was really involved, and it was brought to a really good climax at the point of the intermission. It almost felt like an ending to the film. For the second half, I didn't feel that it quite had the same draw, the same intensity. It wasn't quite as engrossing as the first half of the film. It's not a film that follows a formulaic story. The story of him succeeding as an architect is very satisfying, and I wanted to see more of that in the second half. He does have successes as an architect, but the film isn't going to give us lots of this. This would have been enjoyable, but perhaps that would have been predictable. For me, the key point perhaps is that Laszlo is so damaged by the experience of the Holocaust that there's always an element of underlying trauma and damage. He's a brutalist as an architect, but he's also been brutalized himself, and he can be brutal himself. It's limited how much he can enjoy his success. And it's perhaps similar for the rich client Van Buren. He's an example of the rich living vacuous lives. His power comes from his obscene wealth, yet he's not satisfied and he's searching for something more. But the power brings racism, exploitation, abuse, even rape. It's possible to get away with it all. Through all of this trauma and the disappointment of the American dream, Laszlo actually is a creative genius, and Van Buren recognises this. Through everything, they actually share a number of special moments, transcending their respective positions and enjoying the sharing of a creative moment. I think this is the key to the film. Laszlo the man is damaged, but the work is his legacy. The presentation of his work at the Venice Biennale achieves what he wants to achieve. He makes a point earlier in the film that whatever happens in society, his buildings will remain standing. But we definitely don't get to revel in his success at the end of the film. I love the moment when Van Buren first meets him and gives him some photographs of his work. It's another really moving moment. Laszlo is so moved by seeing his own work. We see how much it means to him. I think the ending is very restrained. It avoids too much emotion. There's not one jot of sentimentality, which it could easily have had, but it's a really meaningful ending. The ending is very restrained. It avoids too much emotion. There's not one jot of sentimentality, which it could easily have had, but it's a really meaningful ending, I think. The 1949 film, The Fountainhead, has been mentioned in several of the reviews that I've read. Both films are about the conflict between capitalism and art. How much are you prepared to compromise your work in order to please a paymaster? There are some similarities in terms of the themes between these two films, but they are very different. The Fountainhead is an interesting film in quite different ways, and I've done a separate review of this. The Brutalist was filmed in VistaVision, which is a 1950s 35mm technology, but it's filmed horizontally. I'm definitely not an expert on different film types, but what I would say is this looks really good. I did notice the colour and the depth of vision. It definitely gave it a 1950s look. Just a final comment on the intermission. The final shot of the first half is a photo, and it stays on that photo for the intermission, and it gives us a 15-minute countdown. I'm not sure what I really think of this. I am a bit of a purist, and I think I would have liked to have seen it all in one go. But these days, practically, I do struggle to go 3.5 hours without going to the loo. So at a practical level of a loo and refreshment break, I think it did work. As I said, it was a great climax that built up to the intermission, and I think this gave us more drama than if it had just gone straight into the next scene. So actually, I think I'm saying that I liked the interval. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this film, and I would highly recommend it. It's a good story and it's beautifully shot. I've already said that I would give Adrien Brody Best Actor for this film. I'm not sure that I would give it Best Film. It is good, but I don't think it gets anywhere near the substance in terms of thrilling filmmaking, or The Beast, which hasn't even been nominated for any Oscars. But it won't surprise me if The Brutalist does win the Oscar for Best Film. It's exactly the kind of film that does. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.